yeah, I did change, and I'm really glad I changed.
This one's wife. Skeletons in the closet. Her past bites back. The past. It is trite to state that everybody has one, although some people have a past which is much more interesting than others. The narcissist is an expert at bringing up the past. A standard manipulation which is utilized to harness some past event, action, or occurrence, whether it happened or not, to assert control and draw fuel in the moment. The past of many narcissists becomes forgotten about promptly through the process of compartmentalization, because the focus of the narcissism is on the now, this precise moment, and now this precise moment, and now this precise moment. This means that once something has happened, it evaporates into the ether. It falls off a cliff and is forgotten about, unless, of course, the narcissism deems that it ought to be resurrected, and then fresh life is breathed into that past event. That is why nothing is ever buried dead with the narcissist. Like the undead, whatever you thought might have been dealt with can be brought back to life, to come crawling out of the earth to cause a problem for you once again. Nevertheless, it is not just the narcissist who can cause the past to return and cause a problem for other people. The narcissist can often find themselves in a problematic situation as a consequence of the past returning to haunt them, those skeletons emerging from the cupboards. Indeed, it is as a consequence of the narcissist operating with that entitlement, demonstrating no accountability for their actions, and behaving with zero emotional empathy, all in pursuit of the prime aims, that the narcissist will repeatedly generate these skeletons by the score. Whether it might be a jilted lover, a friend who has been used and thrown to one side, a disgruntled family member who was scapegoated, an abused child, a colleague who was shafted, an employee who was mistreated, a neighbour who was harassed, an affair partner who was left by the wayside, a spouse who was never paid the maintenance they were entitled to, and so many other scenarios. The way the narcissist functions means that there may be a huge cast of those skeletons from the past. Since the narcissist will only treat people well when it suits them to do so, and because the narcissist will invariably fall out with numerous people owing to the narcissistic mindset and the absence of obligation, commitment, conscience, and emotional empathy, this means that the narcissist is primed to create so many people who will have an axe to grind with the narcissist. Former intimate partners have been abused and jettisoned, friends have been let down, family members not repaid the monies they lent to the narcissist, the school that was promised charitable support by the narcissist which never came, the colleague who was bullied at work, and so many others, all with their stories to tell of mistreatment and abuse from the narcissist. The narcissist is not troubled by these individuals ordinarily. They are forgotten about, because they are of no further use to the narcissist, and should they appear on the radar, they will be dismissed, usually with smearing. My ex, she's a nut job, made my life hell. My dad, I do not bother with him after he stole from me. Jim, he'll tell you all sorts of nonsense about me, but that's only because his wife left him for me. If he'd been a better husband, then he wouldn't have lost her. Jenny, she'll bore you with some cock and bull story about how I stabbed her in the back on the parish council, but let me tell you, she's the backstabber and goes around blaming me instead. Should the individual from the past loom on the horizon and pose a threat to control to the narcissist, then the narcissist will nullify that threat by dismissing them as someone who unfairly bears a grudge against the narcissist, who is, of course, the unfortunate victim of a deluded and unbalanced person. Many people in the grip of the narcissist's golden period cannot reconcile these allegations with the person they find themselves dealing with. They simply do not tally. Add in the smearing of the complainant and their reluctance to see the unknown narcissist as less than that which they present themselves as, it is often the case that the complainant from the past is not believed, and the narcissist prevails once again. However, in certain instances, the sheer number of skeletons emerging from those cupboards starts to paint a different picture, causing people to re-evaluate their view of the unidentified narcissist. The narcissist thrives through compartmentalization and minimization. But should a cast of complainants emerge, then people start to notice. For many narcissists, this is less of an issue owing to the ability to divide and conquer, and the fact that the skeletons remain in the cupboard, pleased to no longer be affected by the narcissist and feeling no need to seek to expose the narcissist's behaviour. However, there are times where exposure occurs, and the more famous and high-profile the narcissist, plus throw in the wealthier also, for financial gain is often a motivator regarding exposure, then the risk increases. Not only are such narcissists likely to have a larger cast of skeletons in the cupboard, but their achieving or maintenance of fame makes them a more prominent target, because the media may well have an interest in what those skeletons have to say. Furthermore, opponents of the narcissist may well utilize what those skeletons have to say in order to dent the ambitions of the narcissist and even derail what they are seeking to achieve, for example, re-election in a political race. This is the problem that this one's wife has. Like any narcissist, she has created skeletons from those she has mistreated in the past, and owing to the fact that she is infamous and unpopular, there are plenty of people who want to hear from those skeletons and will publicize their views. For example, her half-siblings, who she has disengaged from, have had plenty to say about her. Piers Morgan, who once idealized her, turned against her when she threatened his control by ghosting. And he remains a perennial thorn in her side. He may not have much to reveal about their past together, but he can be relied upon to seize upon revelations from her past to give them exposure. Many want Trevor Engelson to speak out about the marriage, for former fellow pupils to explain whether the alleged hazing incident took place, and if it did, what actually happened, for the alleged first husband to come forward and tell the truth of their union, for staff to expose the allegations of bullying and to reveal to the world the true situation involving the children, for alleged yacht girls to dish the dirt concerning her on-board behaviours. Owing to her narcissism and the way it functions, this one's wife has many skeletons lurking in the cupboard, and given her unpopularity and prominence, there is a ready audience waiting and wanting these skeletons to come forth and expose her by providing the evidence of her behaviours. Many observers and commentators have expressed surprise and dismay that the mainstream media has, in the main, failed to look into many of the allegations about this one's wife's past, leading to speculation that a super injunction exists preventing such investigations and reporting. Regularly, these commentators air their frustration at a failure by the newspapers and media outlets to undertake a deep dive investigation into her former relationships, the financial operation of Archwell, the alleged phantom pregnancies, whether the children actually exist, whether anybody actually does live at the mansion in Monty Shitshow. Was she a yacht girl? Did she know Prince Andrew before she joined the royal family? What was her real role within Soho House, and other pertinent questions which remain unanswered? Such investigations would invariably need to have many skeletons emerging from their cupboards, not only confirming what many have thought, possibly putting more outlandish speculations to bed as simply rumour, and demonstrating to those who still support her that certain allegations are supported by evidence, and she really is as unpleasant and nasty as many have already worked out. Nevertheless, notwithstanding this failure by mainstream media, the courageous undercover reporters at the Tudor News Channel have been able to speak with some of these skeletons from her past. And through our roving reporter, Mary Joanna, we have been given some more insight about the past of this one's wife. Mary first spoke to Bruce Digo, a young Australian from Maroota, to the north of Sydney. He had this to say.
Yeah, I was hired to be a general dog's body when Harry and her came to Oz on their tour. You know, the one where she could not believe she was not being paid for a walkabout. Struth. She was hard work. I was given the position of chief beverage provider, which meant I had to cater to all of her thirst requirements. She never looked me in the eye, waved her hand to summon me, waved her hand to dismiss me, and never used my name. She was always demanding these pretentious drinks, asking if I had a rose petal infusion tea or a carrot beet shrub. I told her we didn't have those, but she could have a passiona. I mean, who doesn't love a passiona when the tarmac is melting? But she just threw her cup of tea at me and called me a kangaroo fucker. I cannot say I have been a fan of hers since.
You are never going to get off lightly when it comes to our straight-talking Antipodean cousins. Good on you, mate. Mary Joanna also tracked down Mike Rochburns, who was part of the security detail in Uvalde, following the tragedy that took place there. He had to say this.
I was there to keep an eye on the memorial, you know, to make sure none of those lank-haired wokeists turned up and turned it into some peasy-ass progressive protest. Uvalde was shaken to the core by what happened there, and I could not believe my ease when I witnessed this one's wife turn up. I was minded to reach for my taser, but then I said, Mike, remember what the judge said, so I calmed myself down. I watched her as she entered a municipal building, and I thought, Mike, you need to follow her because she will be up to some sneaky shit. And I was right. I watched her from around the corner as she walked up to a vending machine and pulled a pair of weird pink balls from her handbag. They were on a chain, you know, like some medieval weapon, and she swung it at the vending machine, breaking the glass. She quickly scooped out the sandwiches, chips, and candy, shoved them in her bag, and ran off laughing. Well, you can imagine my disgust when she later tried to give this stuff to the community effort as her donation. Thankfully, Sal Amy, community coordinator, told her where she could stick her cheap-ass self, and then I found her sat under a tree, eating the candy, being filmed as one tear spilled from her left eye. Fair to say, she ain't welcome here no more.
Mike's experience of this one's wife finds itself echoed by Hamish McHaggis, who hails from Crieff in Scotland, but was working at Buckingham Palace when Tao was a working member of the royal family.
She was an absolute nightmare. King Charles has his moments, but he lets us more established members of staff call him Chuck, and the Queen is happy to be spoken to as Cammy, but this one's wife. You always had to address her as Your Royal Highness every single time you spoke to her. Your Royal Highness here is your lunch. Your Royal Highness, would you require quilted toilet roll? Your Royal Highness, Harry asks for you to come to the cottage as he has done a whoopsie again. She also insisted on being heralded whenever she entered a room, whether it was one of the staterooms in the palace, going to the stationery cupboard, or entering the bathroom. The palace herald refused to do it, and he is on Chuck's Uno team, so he cannot be touched. So she gave me this cheap plastic trumpet and told me that I had to do it instead. Otherwise, she would report me to Omid Scobie as a hater. Well, I needed the money. Have you seen the price of a deep-fried Mars bar these days? Needless to say, I am no fan of hers.
So far, the men have had their say about this one's wife. But what about the ladies? Mary, after a considerable effort, managed to speak to a former employee who was hired as a member of staff at the Montecchio mansion. Clee Torres emerged from the cupboard to tell us this.
I only worked there for 3 weeks before I quit. She was a nightmare. I had to be up at 5 a.m. and send a series of emails to people in her name to make it look like she was up and working. She never got out of bed any time earlier than 11 a.m., let me tell you. Then I had to go and water all the marijuana plants and then head out to the chicken coop to take Harry his breakfast. He was okay, actually. Always said please and thank you. But his wife, no thank you. I had to send all the clothes back that she borrowed. Did I go through some stain remover, and then I had to bake banana bread, make strawberry jam, ring Gavin Newsom, watch H.G. Tudor, The Royal Grift, The Royal Rogue, and the Sidley twins to see what they were saying about her. I had to note it all down in her big book of bastards, which she would always read when she did appear while she sipped on a Bloody Mary. Once she read the book, I had to wait as she smashed some crockery and screamed at the wall. Then she told me to get Oprah on the telephone. I stopped trying after the third knockback and told Miss Fancy Pants that she was busy, but I doubt she ever heard me, as she would be giggling with that Marcus fellow who had his own suite in the house. She was so ill-mannered, never said please, never said thank you, and expected me to throw rose petals in front of her as she walked around the house and immediately sweep them up, using a broom that I was expected to ram up my ass and sweep like Satan was chasing me. Well, nobody has got time for that. I decided to quit and join the front line in Ukraine. It is far more relaxing than working for her.
Quite the revelation there, I'm sure you will agree. Another person from the past that has now felt confident to share her experience of this one's wife is Wan Heng Lo, who is from Changsha in China.
I came to London some years ago. I was very excited as Chinese tour operator had arranged for special visit with Prince of Pink Pancakes and his wife. We were given special passes so we could meet them at Canadian Embassy. My friend was with me, and we were like a pair of schoolgirls as we were going to meet English royalty. This would form the basis of many stories for my family when we returned to Changsha. We waited patiently, and then they arrived. Harry was about to step out of the black car, but then suddenly he fell back into the car as if something had pulled him back. I do not know if perhaps he has slipped on a banana of empowerment. Instead, his wife appeared. She got out of the car and swung the door behind her just as Harry was trying to get out of the car a second time. It hit him in the face and he fell down again. My friend whispered, "Shall we help him?" But we did not know the royal protocol, so we did nothing. His wife started waving at the handful of people walking past, as if she knew them, and then she walked over to us. I felt my spirits soar as I was about to be shaking hands and sharing words with real Duchess. "Here, hold this," she said as she threw her topcoat over me. It went over my head, and my friend had to help me remove it. By then, the rude woman had gone, and all she left us with was a strange smell of carpet slippers and damp. I do not like her.
It all starts to paint a picture, does it not, as these skeletons come out of the closet, and this one's wife's past bites her on the backside. Mary Joanna also managed to spend some time with Georgie Muckle from Alnwick in Northumberland, England, who shared her experience of this one's wife.
Why, aye, man, a few years back when I was a student, I was a waitress and got a gig at Chester Town Hall. I thought it would just be for the mayor and some local bigwigs, but then when I had to be vetted by the police, I found out it was because Queen Elizabeth and this one's wife were having a lunch at the town hall. I was proper nervous, but a quick bottle of Broon beforehand settled me nerves. The Queen was lush. She had this gorgeous lime green outfit on and was proper canny. She heard me speak and said, "Oh, a Geordie her way and shite." I laughed so much I nearly dropped the bread rolls on her royal heed. Mind you, I didn't care much for Lady Muckmind. She was proper Raj, had a face on the whole time the Queen was speaking and looked at you like you were shite on her shoe. The only time she spoke to me in mind, this was through one of her flunkies, was to ask, was this bread baked sustainably and reared on organic grass? I told her straight, probably from Greg's steak bakers for the main course. But she just made a noise like she had shat herself and waved me away. I did notice she spent a lot of her time sending text messages to Harry such as, "Remember to wipe your bottom," and "Make sure the door handle is nice and warm for when I get home." And "See if William wants to stay over." I was clamming for me bait, so I stopped reading them after a while, but I can tell you she would not get away with sticking her nose in the air where I come from. nae chance.
Well, there you have it. Just some of this one's wife's past coming back to bite her, and a salutary lesson for you about the way the narcissist uses the past, and, of course, the way the past can affect the narcissist. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.